Hello everyone, my name is Becca and welcome to Yellow Cat Studios. And welcome back to my Sewing Basics series. In this video, I will be talking about some common sewing tools that you will see talked about a lot. I do not have all of these, so the ones that I do not have, I will be popping up pictures. So yeah, let's just get started. Alright, so I'm not going to do these in any particular order, but we're going to start with cutting tools. So most basic regular dressmaking shears or scissors. There are lots of different types of scissors that you can get for sewing. This sort of angled one is your most basic dressmaking shears. You've also got little tiny embroidery scissors. You don't have to use these just for embroidery. They're good for just little snips if you gotta like trim some thread or something. Another one that I do not personally have, but I would like to invest in, they're called pinking shears. And basically you use these on your raw edge of fabric and it helps prevent or reduce fraying. Another one is a rotary cutter. I actually don't love using this. I feel like I just don't have quite as much control. I'm sure with practice it would be quite easy, and it is quicker than your regular scissors because you just have to slide it along. But like I said, you gotta have a really steady hand and a heavy hand to make sure you're getting through all of your fabric. Another very important tool is your seam ripper. So this is, I don't really know how to describe it. It's a little sharp tool used to rip apart seams. So you go in between the fabric where your seam is to rip the threads holding the seam together. You will get a lot of use out of this tool and you will be very annoyed by it, but it will be one of your most important ones. Now onto tools for measuring. Tape measure. This is a soft, flexible measuring tape. This you will need for measuring body proportions so that you can size your garments. Straight rulers are also very helpful for cutting fabrics, straight edges. Another type of ruler that I do not have, and I don't know that I would get a lot of use out of just with the things that I make, is called a French curve. This is used for, I believe, like armholes, necklines, things like that. I don't have one. I have never drafted a proper pattern, so I have never had need for one. Some other things that you're going to need are things for marking and pinning your fabric. So, most basic, pins. This is a little tomato pin cushion with just a bunch of my regular pins. These ones have a little ball on the end of them, makes them really easy to find in the fabric. And makes it so they don't go all the way through the fabric. Some pins will have just a regular flat head, like this one. I don't really like to use these just because they're harder to find in the fabric. Another thing that you can use for pinning, holding your fabric together, are clips. So I have these ones. They're really good for fabrics that will basically hold your pinhole. So some fabrics, you pin them, you take the pin out, you cannot see where it was pinned. Other fabrics, it will leave a hole in the fabric. Something like faux leathers, vinyl, stuff like that. That's where clips can come in really handy. However, these ones clip very hard, so they will put indents in the fabric. So when I use them, if I'm using them on a fabric that I know this is gonna leave a dent in, I put it on the seam allowance. so that it's not on my nice fabric that you're gonna see. And then for marking your fabrics, for things like transferring pattern markings onto your fabric or cut lines, things like that, most commonly you're gonna see chalk, or most traditionally, I guess. Just regular chalk, as far as I'm aware. I don't know if there's specific dressmaking chalk. I've had this for forever, don't know where it came from. Just chalk. I don't really use this though. I use my dressmaking pen. It has disappearing ink, so the ink is air and water soluble. So when I put it on fabric, it will just eventually fade, or I can use water to get rid of it. Highly recommend one of these. They're a lot easier to use than chalk. Another thing you're gonna need is an iron and an ironing board. Now, admittedly, I do not iron nearly as much as I should because I'm lazy, and pretty much all of the things that I make are for myself. So if it's not perfect, I don't actually care that much. But I do have a really nice little tabletop ironing board, which makes it a lot easier and makes it more likely that I'm actually going to iron something. So ignore my disaster of a sewing room. This is my little tabletop ironing board. Super easy, it folds up, doesn't take up a lot of space, makes it a lot easier than one of the big fold out ironing boards. Another thing you can use to iron your fabric would be a steamer. I just recently started using one. It really depends on the fabric. Sometimes it works absolutely wonderfully. It does take a little bit longer, I find, especially if you're just using it on one big old sheet of fabric, but that is another option, especially for the more delicate fabrics that you're not too sure how they're going to react with an iron. Always do a test piece when you're ironing or even steaming, just to make sure you're not going to ruin your entire piece of fabric. There are a lot of different tools for pressing fabrics made for different needs. I am not going to get into that in this video because I honestly do not know a whole lot about them. I use my iron and ironing board and my steamer, and that is it. But there are lots of different ironing aids. But your most basic is your iron and ironing board, and they are important. It is an important step. It will make your finished garments come out so much more professionally if you actually like press your seams, iron your hems, all that sort of stuff. And last but certainly not least, I have sewing aids. So these are things that are gonna make it easier on you for sewing. One of those things is a needle threader. Now, I don't know where my other one is. It looks like this. It's the one I would normally use for actually threading a sewing needle. This one is more for embroidery floss. But basically, if you have trouble getting thread through the eye of a needle, you take a needle threader, put it through the eye of your needle. It's gonna be really hard to see. Take your thread, hook it, or thread it through the needle threader, and then just pull it through the needle. This thread is a little too thick for this, but then you can just get rid of that. And your needle is threaded. I don't use it a lot, but it can be very helpful. Like I said, the other one is the one I would actually use for threading a sewing needle, but there is also the option for threading embroidery floss. And then you have pin cushions. This is one that I made in like middle school that I have been using ever since. It does have a little elastic on there, so I could theoretically put it on my wrist and just have like my pins hanging out there. I use this one mostly for my pins, and then this one just to hold my loose sewing needles, hand sewing needles. And these are really important, or like a magnetic dish or something to keep your pins all in one place so you don't lose them. But you also need to be taking your pins out when you're sewing through a sewing machine. Do not sew over your pins. You will break a needle and could injure yourself. So always have somewhere to put your pins while you're sewing. Something else that you'll see a lot of for hand sewing, probably for embroidery as well, are thimbles. Now this is your regular thimble, just goes on the end of your finger. I don't use these because I don't find they work for me. I got this one off of Etsy, and basically is an adjustable one that can go on the end of your finger. This is not going to fall off. This will stay on my finger, and you use this to push your needle through, particularly on difficult fabrics when you're hand sewing. They're really nice. They will save your fingers. I need to find someone to make one to go on like the side of your finger, because I do tend to use the sides of my fingers when I'm hand sewing and pushing the needles through, but this has been very helpful. I will try and find the Etsy listing that I bought it from and link it below. Now, this last one is less specific for sewing and more for crafting in general. You may find that you need wrist support or hand support. I know my wrist, I do a lot of hands-on crafting, hobbies, that kind of thing. And also my job is hard on my wrist. So I have found that I have needed to wear a wrist support. I don't do a full-on like splint brace when I'm crafting, but I have been using this type of wrist support. There are lots of different things for like carpal tunnel specifically, compression gloves, just to help with different aches and pains that you might get when you're crafting. Protect your wrists. If you are a crafter and you love doing it and you want to continue doing it, take care of your hands, take care of your wrists. So yeah, that one's less sewing specific and more for the crafters out there, but it can be quite important. So those were all of the sewing tools and aids that I had on my list. If there's anything that I missed, let me know. If you have any further questions on them, let me know, leave a comment. I will do my best to give helpful answers. But I hope this little overview of some of the things that you might need is helpful and can help you get started with your sewing journeys. Yeah, you can check out the rest of my sewing basics videos here. I will say this in every video, I am not a professional, I am self-taught. I have been doing this for quite a few years, so I think I know a thing or two. And I'm just here to try and make sewing seem less daunting to someone looking to start. Leave a like, subscribe to my channel for more sewing, cosplay content. We have fun. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!